So after completing my prehistoric park reviews, I decided that the next logical step would be to review another nostalgic item with an anniversary coming up. I had hoped to do Walking with Beasts, but I didn't have the time, so instead I'm doing the 15th anniversary of something rather different. Zoo Tycoon was by no means the first Tycoon game, or even the first Tycoon game about animals. Its success lies in one of the gameplay features, and that isn't the Tycoon mechanics. You see, a traditional Tycoon game is essentially a more aesthetically pleasing Excel spreadsheet, where the only way things can go wrong is bankruptcy. Zoo Tycoon's spiritual predecessor Roller Coaster Tycoon is fondly remembered for its ability to throw park guests off the top of 100-foot roller coasters into pits of lava. And Zoo Tycoon has the same potential for such psychopathy against zoo guests. Who can honestly say that they never blocked off the gate of the zoo and then released the big cats? That's certainly my first memory of the game. After the initial fun of listening to panicking guests, the player will eventually decide to play the actual game. Zoo Tycoon has two modes: Scenario mode, where you get given a challenge and an overly long time deadline, and Freeform mode, where you build a park from scratch on a wide variety of maps. Scenario mode is fairly conventional. There are 3 easy, 4 intermediate, 4 advanced and 2 near impossible levels, as well as 3 tutorial levels at the beginning. These scenarios follow the general trends of keeping animal and guest happiness high, as well as exhibit suitability and zoo ratings high. Sometimes they will follow a theme, such as big cats or endangered species, although often the novelty simply lies in the map. There are also scenarios where you get animals donated, or where the animal's already there and you have to improve their conditions. Freeform mode is a sandbox where you get to create your own zoo how you want to. You still need to keep guest happiness high to get money, and animal happiness high so you don't lose the right to animals. The maps you can use range from fairly conventional things such as a city zoo, a jungle and a savannah, to some rather less conventional places such as the Pyramids of Giza, the Pacific Ocean, Skull Island, the Moon and Mars. Visitor satisfaction is kept up by meeting their needs, those being energy, provided by benches, their need to go to the toilet, restroom, their thirst and hunger, provided by stands and machines, and their happiness, provided by their access to these things, their ability to see many animals, and their enjoyment of not being mauled to death by a black bear. Animal satisfaction is fairly similar. They also need to rest in shelters, food is provided by keepers, and they're fairly happy when not being torn apart by a Siberian tiger. They also have a health bar, where they seem to get ill at random, and the keeper is needed to revive them. They also need a suitable enclosure, but they sure are picky. They need the right number of rocks, the right number of plants, occasionally toys and climbing frames, the aforementioned shelters, and, as anyone who's played this game will gravely remember, the right number of terrain squares. As anyone who's been to a real zoo will know, a dromedary camel, a zebra and an American bison are all perfectly happy with the same grass, but in Zoo Tycoon don't you ever give a camel a single blade of grass, and your zebra won't stand for any of your temperate grass and muck. As it is, working out what each animal's needs are is not really a hard task, though as a child I certainly remember having trouble getting things right. This was due to the icon only indicating that animals needed one terrain type rather than the number that they actually do. These icons usually pertain to the terrain that makes the majority of their enclosure, the exceptions being the aquatic flamingo and hippo and the mud-loving African warthog. Most of the enclosures fairly closely match the habitats of the animals they represent, even to the extent of the leopard having small patches of rainforest flora and the gemsbok having small patches of savanna grass to represent the range of habitats each animal can be found in. Certain animals will have fairly similar enclosure needs, such as the Thompson's gazelle and the plain zebra, the African buffalo and the common wildebeest, and the hippopotamus and the greater flamingo, though not the hippopotamus and the Thompson's gazelle. Zoo rating is improved by the number and range of animals, which can be a pain if you're trying to do a theme zoo. Apparently guests don't appreciate your effort and would rather every zoo had lions and tigers and polar bears jostling together. Of course, if you are to make a themed zoo, you're going to have to pick somewhere with a lot of animals. You can make a really impressive zoo with African animals, but you won't get very far with South American animals, the only two in the game being the jaguar and the giant anteater. Now, on to reviewing the stars of the show, the animals themselves. Vanilla Zoo Tycoon has 45 normal animals plus 2 unlocked by cheat codes that don't work on Windows 7, 8 or 10. I've set myself a challenge of mentioning every single one by name in this video at least once. Let's start with the first 8 unlocked in freeform mode. Now, what would you think the first 8 animals you should get should be? In Zoo Tycoon 2, the first 4 animals you can unlock are the peafowl, the Thompson's gazelle, the moose and the dromedary camel. In Zoo Tycoon, the Thompson's gazelle and moose are starters, as well as the plain zebra, the giraffe, the grizzly bear, the chimpanzee, the African lion and the Bengal tiger. Yes, The order you unlock animals in this game seems completely arbitrary, and likewise some of the last animals you unlock, such as the markhor and the red kangaroo and the greater flamingo, are really rather small and comparatively unimpressive. Trying to review the accuracy of small pixelated animals is rather hard, but thankfully each animal has some information written about it, as well as a high quality close-up picture of the animal. One common issue is sexual dimorphism. Only 4 animals in the game are blessed with this: the African lion, the moose, the lowland gorilla and the American bighorn sheep. However, in reality, the male ibex, markhor and Thompson's gazelles have much larger horns than the female. In the game, all the ibex and markhors look like males, while all the gazelles look like females. The male ostrich should have black feathers rather than brown, and the juveniles should be spotted. The female red kangaroos should be grey and smaller than the males. Male olive baboons, mandrills and California sea lions should be larger than the females. And finally, on a related note, the emperor penguin's chicks should not look like miniature clones of their parents. Literally anyone who's watched March of the Penguins or Happy Feet would know this. Oh wait, they came out after the game was released. Fine, life in the freezer then. Other than that, I'd say the animals are not actually that bad. There are no real glaring issues. Sure, the Bengal tiger is too yellow, the red kangaroo is too red and the saltwater crocodile is too green, but it's a video game, and a sprite-based one at that. These are issues I'd have greater problems with if they were made by Zoo Tycoon 2. Likewise, while all the animals are happy with much smaller enclosures than they would have in a good real-life zoo, particularly the cheetah and the African elephant, the small enclosures are really to make the game work as a game. Word of advice though, never try to build an enclosure for the grey wolf or Arctic wolf unless you have a lot of money and space. There is a feature in the game where you can research things. These include toys and plants for the animals, attractions for the guests and skills for the keepers. You can also research 6 animals for an endangered species breeding program, which also links to one of the intermediate levels. Unfortunately, this is quite a flawed program, but you see, of the animals included, as well as the okapi, lowland gorilla and snow leopard, there are also the white Bengal tiger and the black leopard. Oh dear. For a start, these are just repaints of 2 other animals, but more to the point, they are not encouraged by serious endangered species breeding programs, especially in the case of white tigers, who are more inbred than a pug. There are a few dodgy things like this in the game, as well as the elephant carousel and an animal theatre, but it's when we get into Marine Mania where the really dodgy stuff starts. The disappointing thing is that including these animals as endangered is a wasted opportunity when you have legitimately endangered and vulnerable animals like the black rhino and the clouded leopard in the game. The cherry on top of this endangered species program is of course the epitome of wasted conservation funds, the giant panda. The final scenario of the game revolves around getting this evolutionary failure to breed, which seems to be a reoccurring pattern in a lot of zoo games. Now let's not forget the cheat code animals. One cheat code is Zandu, which unlocks the unicorn, which isn't real so I'm not going to review it. The other is Cretaceous Corral, which unlocks a Triceratops, which is just asking for a review. The frill doesn't have enough epicipitals, the tail is too reptilian, the arms are pronated, and I'm fairly certain it's been given elephantine feet. It also lives in the savannah and wants an Australian grass tree, in contrast to the swampy Hell Creek environment. Well, there's your dinosaur review, kids. Zoo Tycoon is a lot of fun. Sure, the graphics are dated and all, and some of the gameplay can be somewhat frustrating, but regardless, it's a charming game that has given me joy for the best part of a decade. Oh yes, did I not say? I was only like 3 years old when this game first came out, so I probably only started to play it after Zoo Tycoon 2 had been released. So that's the review. I was your host, Adaphosaurus Pogonias, and I have only one thing left to say. Spotted hyena.